up, everyone? This is Landman here with another episode of Cheeseheadz Weekly. This is episode 38, maybe? I will just check real quick. It is 38, and it's an exciting time because we are going to get a guest on this show today. I said we might do that. And then I wasn't sure I was going to be able to because my week has been really busy. I'm going to be really busy this week. But we were able to pull it off and got Troy on the show here. And he will be joining us shortly. To start off, we do have the Q&A and polls on Spotify. You can check them out, participate in those. It's a lot of fun. We will have a poll and Q&A after this fun episode. There's a link in the description of every single episode on every single platform to send in a voice message. It would be great to see one of them. I have not seen one of them in a long time. Send in a question, just thoughts on the Packers so far. Whatever you want me to hear, that would be fantastic, especially if you have questions that you want me to talk about. Not that I have all the answers or anything, but certainly could make for some fun discussion. Also, the show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and a few other places, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. New episodes every Tuesday. You can hit the bell on Spotify to be notified when a new episode comes out. Tell your friends about the show. Rate the show on Spotify. Rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram at cheeseheads_weekly. You can check out the website at greatcove.net/cheeseheads. Every single episode is there, as well as all the platforms that I have the show on. And with that done, we will just jump right into it and bring Troy onto the show to talk Packers. All right, so for this episode, we do have a guest on the show. I was able to get Troy back on here to discuss some things we've seen so far through the first 5 games of the season, as the Packers are they have a bye, and so they're gonna be going to play the Broncos then in week 7, and so just trying to figure some things out after taking some bad losses, going 2-3 here to start the season. So just overall, it looks a lot like it just looks like struggles, a little bit of struggles everywhere, mainly on offense, but there has been a few struggles at times on defense. I think fans have definitely noticed that, and especially with Joe Barry very much on the hot seat. So I guess we'll start with the defense. Definitely have plenty to talk about on the offensive side of the ball, but I'll start with the defense. What are your thoughts on the defense's performance here through the first 5 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I still don't think Joe Barry's the answer, but I've always said that, and I think they should have let him go, a season ago, at least. But Matt LaFleur made the decision to stick with Joe, so we have Joe. And honestly, the last couple games that they played, the defense didn't do too terribly bad. Green Bay was always in a position to win the game. They were against Vegas, but the defense has a lot on its shoulders. I think Jair Alexander said it. He said after Monday's loss, that Monday night game, after the loss to the Raiders, I believe it was, he said, the defense has to not give up any touchdowns. That's how they're looking at it as a defense. So they feel that it's on them because of the offensive struggles, and so they're feeling that, and until the offense can kind of get it together and start clicking. Um, but I don't think that loss was on Joe Barry's crew. That was on the defense held the Raiders to 17 points, and Adams only had 45 yards receiving.
Yeah.
If I would have told you that the Raiders were going to be held to 17 points and Adams would have 45 yards receiving, and we forced an interception, had 6 sacks, and allowed 279 yards total, would you say that we would have won the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have too. I'd have said, "Oh, that sounds like a win to me," but it wasn't. It was a 17-13 loss, So the defense, I mean, against the Raiders. Now, I mean, when we play other teams that have better offenses, then I think you'll see some of that too, right? So I think you have to look at
Yeah.
the teams you're playing against. And we've played against Chicago, who's not a very good team. Atlanta, not a very good team. They'll get there. The Saints, we had to pull that out at the end.
Yeah.
Detroit is a good team, and Vegas. So we haven't went up against juggernauts, necessarily. So when you look at that, um, I think that the defense, yeah, you say, oh, they look pretty good. But just wait till we go against some really good teams, and then I think we could see, a little bit of a different look. But yeah, defensively though, I think at least even though you are playing the poor teams, you still have to do a good job, and I think Green Bay has done that. Um, they've done enough to where the offense um, should have been able to pull those games out. We should have beat Atlanta. We should have beat
Yeah.
the Raiders, and so because our defense played well enough to where we could have gotten those wins, and it just didn't happen. So now those really tough games that we face, um, that's going to be where if the defense doesn't hold up its end, we'll kind of get on the defense's case. Um, but we got to win the games that we should be winning too, and we're not. And so that's what's concerning. We're not even pulling out the games we should be winning.
Yeah. Um, I think the defense, I mean, one thing I would say that the Packers have just done really well is putting pressure on the quarterback.
Hmm.
Rashawn Gary has not even been out there full time yet. He's still recovering from the injury. They're still working him back slowly, which I think is a smart move, and it hasn't mattered. He's been great. Every time he's been out there, he's made an impact almost every single play, and just done really well. There's some stats here that I saw. Um, the Packers with these four players, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark, and Devontae Wyatt. They're putting pressure on the quarterback 52.63% of the time and getting sacks 31.58% of the time. The pressure rate is third among qualified quartets for pass rushers in the NFL, and they're first as far as sack rate goes with those four players. So they've only actually been on the field 19 snaps together. Um, but like really, or at least when they're rushing the passer, that is. But like
Hmm.
10 pressures and 6 sacks on those 19 snaps. That's pretty impressive. I think once Rashawn Gary gets more out there, we're gonna see those guys on the field together. Now, obviously, that doesn't really solve the issues with stopping the run. I think that's the
Right.
defense's biggest weakness right now. They have guys that can rush the passer, lots of talent there. The main issue is stopping the run, and we saw that versus the Lions. They really struggled to stop David Montgomery, and the Lions' run game
Hmm.
there. We're really getting pushed around by the Lions' offensive line, which, I mean, credit to the Lions. Their offensive line is good. David Montgomery has been running over everyone pretty much. He's been playing really well for them, but they have to stop the run. But yeah, what you said, it isn't really on the defense. I share the same feelings for sure. Um, I think Joe Barry has done a pretty good job. I mean, considering. I think especially in the Lions game, he should have made some more adjustments to try to stop David Montgomery sooner. Um,
Hmm.
there's certainly some things he can do, but I mean, we certainly shouldn't have been expecting this defense to just be amazing. I wasn't because we've seen what Joe Barry's done so far.
Hmm.
Um, and so I don't think there's a ton of blame that can be put on Joe Barry. He has this defense playing pretty well. If you take out the Lions game, they've played really well, and especially against the pass. And yeah, if they can stop the run, I think this defense can be really good. And I mean, once you just are able to fully unleash Rashawn Gary, that's just gonna make us better on defense.
Yeah, without a
So
doubt. Yeah, when you look at just to kind of add to what you just said, Green Bay's
yeah,
allowed the seventh lowest conversion rate on third downs at 34%. And then they have the 12th lowest average quarterback rating of 84.9, according to some stats I'm looking at here. So
yeah,
that's fantastic. And when you see that, you're like, awesome. But to your point, it's the opponents are running at will against the Green Bay run defense. And so that's where it's critical. We rank number 28 out of 32, giving up 143 yards a game. We're right down there with Pittsburgh, Carolina, the Giants, and Denver, giving up 172 yards a game, which is crazy. So, but guess who's number one? And this is so weird to say. It's Detroit, And then and when I was listening to uh, or my brother, I should say, was we were texting back and forth last night, and we were talking about the top teams. And when you say Detroit, they're actually a Super Bowl contender. It's like, wait, are they? Yeah, they are. I mean, they're playing that well. I mean,
yep,
they're a good team. I mean, it's they've had some really bad drafts with Matt Millen, and now they got different regime in there. They've gotten a coach they believe in. They've got when Dan Campbell. They've got the players and Jamar Gibbs. You got Jamison Williams who just came back from his suspension, and he only had a couple catches, but one was for like 50 some yards. He had a touchdown on that catch, and then you throw in St. Brown and Sam Laporte is a very good rookie tight end. Jared Goff's playing well, and their defense is playing well, and it's just they're clicking. And then that's the
yeah,
ascension you want to see with your team. But Green Bay can get there. But you're right that the run defense that's where they're getting gashed. And if you can't stop the run, it's going to be tough.
yep, yeah. Um, I do like that they're playing the Broncos here coming out of
Hmm.
the bye. I think that's a good game to get right.
Yeah.
I think the Broncos, um, yeah, they're kind of just the joke of the NFL right now. And
Oh my goodness. It could be worse, right? I mean,
yeah,
they threw all this money to Russell Wilson. I mean, Seattle let him go for a reason, right? They were like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we're going to do this." And then Denver just throws all this money at him and oops. I
yep,
don't think it was Nathaniel Hackett. It looks like Russell Wilson is still not doing so well under Sean Payton either. So
yeah,
I think they realize that. I think they'll move on from him. I think they have to. And
yeah,
I think you'll start seeing them trade players and just, okay, we're just going to cash it in and build for the future because that's about all they can do at this point. They're going
yeah,
to carry that contract. And that's Green Bay's got the same issue with cap space. Like we got a lot of dead money. 25% of Green Bay's salary cap is to players that aren't even with us anymore. It's just
yeah.
that's going to kill you.
Hmm.
And then when people say, "Well, why don't you go out and sign these players?" Well, we can't. We don't have the
Yep,
cap room.
yeah, yep. That's kind of been the way it is for us, the
Hmm.
last few years here with Aaron Rodgers um, on the
Hmm.
team, and we've paid lots of other players and just trying to piece it together um, to get to the Super Bowl again. Just
Hmm.
never happened. Um, so yeah, Yeah, the Broncos, I think the biggest surprise is just that their defense was so bad. They had a good defense last year, and I did not expect them to just completely fall apart. Um, I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
everyone's heard of the Dolphins game. They got 70 points put up on them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really understand what happened. Uh,
Yeah, it was a video game. I mean, that was just incredible.
yeah,
Um, yeah, Denver gives up about 268 yards passing yards per game, 117 quarterback rating. Yards per pass is 8.8, and a 14 to 4 touchdown to interception ratio. So, and a
yeah,
76% completion rate. That
yeah,
that's what Jordan Love needs. He needs
yeah,
a confidence booster, right? Go and get
yep,
now if he only throws, let's say his average is 55% completion right now, which is the lowest in the NFL. But if he stays in that even against Denver,
yeah,
now I'm getting a little more concerned. But if he can
yeah,
have a bounce back game, and we'll see how he does. But yeah, you're right. Denver's a good team to face out of the bye, and we got to be prepared for that game. And
yeah,
we had 11 days to prepare for the Raiders, and it didn't look like we were very prepared. And so hopefully with this bye week, we'll be prepared for the Broncos.
yeah, yep. I guess we'll get into the offense here a little bit
Hmm.
now. Just give your overall thoughts here. Just kind of how maybe where the offense needs to improve, what's going wrong. I mean, I think there's a lot of things we can point to, but
Yep.
just give your thoughts on that.
Well, there's a lot. But the first thing that pops out to me, we got to get Aaron Jones healthy and get him back on the
Yes.
field.
Yes.
Um, he is a difference maker. I mean, that takes so much pressure off of Jordan Love. And I think right now he's got a lot of pressure placed on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the receivers. Um, he does, but he doesn't have the receivers that have that veteran experience. They're still a very young group of receivers. And so it's going to take them some time. We're 5 games into the season. They're all virtually rookies.
Yeah.
And so because of injuries last year, not a lot of playing time. So they're virtually rookies. And it's just a matter of, getting repetitiveness and playing together and doing that. And that's just going to take some time. In the NFL, though, you don't have a lot of time. So you got to start producing right away. But I think getting Aaron Jones back will help because when AJ Dillon was in there last week, it was straight, hit the hole. If it's open, great. If it's not, I'm going to hit the wall. And it was like
Yeah.
just north and south. And usually it was a cloud of dust. And when he got hit,
Hmm.
and not a lot of moves. And we're really missing that good second tier running back on the roster. I mean, and it was
Hmm.
interesting. They cut Patrick Taylor after they signed him to the roster,
Yeah.
and then they bring in Emmanuel Wilson, and so we'll see. I don't know, but no clear good backup for Aaron Jones, that's for sure,
Yeah.
and I think that's hurt. So I don't know if he's going to be back, but um, I guess I haven't read to see if he's going to be. They expect him back on this. Do you know? I haven't researched that.
I haven't researched it much either. It sounds
Okay.
like I haven't heard anything that indicating that there was a setback or anything. My guess
Yeah.
is they just held him out, hoping to give him, um, the extra week of rest here since they knew they were going into the bye, and
Yeah.
then maybe hoping they can, get him back on in more of a full-time role, possibly.
Looks Yeah, looks like he's practicing. So he was at practice Monday, it says here, and so
Okay.
so he is eyeing a return. So that's a good
Yep.
sign that they'll have him back. So that's one thing that they need. The other thing, though, is to answer your question, like what can they do better? You know, it's interesting, that Matt LaFleur said after the game that yeah, we got to coach better, we got to do things better, we're going to make improvements. He says that all the time. Let's see him do it then. But
Yeah.
it just seemed like it was either a deep ball pass in that last game, or it was you know, um, a handoff or something really short. So I didn't see a.
Yep.
It's almost like, I don't know if they trust Love to make these throws, but at some point, I think you just gotta like. let him rip it, and let's see what he's got. We just got to start throwing more intermediate routes and just if he throws an interception, he throws an interception, but let's see what we got. But it's like they're scared to open it up for him. It's like they're trying to be very cautious with the game plan. Let's be safe with it. It's almost like there's this lack of trust yet. And and they see things in practice that we don't see. So that's probably where that comes from. But that's concerning to me. I told you on the pregame show here that I was comparing Jordan Love 5 games into the season compared to where Aaron Rodgers was 5 games into the season. And as I indicated earlier, Love, what I don't like to see is he was at 55% completion rate, which is last in the NFL. Um, Rodgers was 63%. Um, he's thrown for 1,083 yards, Jordan Love, compared to Rodgers' 1,274. Um, Love has thrown 8 touchdowns and Rodgers 9. So they're right there after the first 5 games. So that's good. Love has 6 interceptions, Rodgers 4. But the passer rating is where the big difference is. Rodgers is 95.5, and then through 5 games, Love is at 77.3, which is 29th in the NFL, by the way. So we see the completion percentage, we see the passer rating um, are really low. And um, so I was thinking about this, and I'll pose this to you. I think a lot of it is you can't just place that all on Jordan Love because who did Aaron Rodgers had? Well, Aaron Rodgers, he had Ryan Grant at the time of running back. We have Aaron Jones. So I'd say that, okay, that's fine. That's comparable. But he also had established receivers. He had Donald Driver and Greg Jennings on the roster at the time, and Donald Lee was the tight end. Combined, Donald Driver had 1,000 yards receiving that year. Jennings had 1,200, and they had 14 touchdowns between the both of them. I don't think you're going to get that production from Watson and Dobbs this year. And
Yeah.
so I think it's just the inexperience at the position is what holds Love back. So I can't place it squarely on Love's shoulders and say that I think it's just going to take some time. So
Yeah.
let me throw this your way. I'll give you one quick scenario and tell me what you think. Brock Purdy from the Niners is doing pretty well. Last pick of the draft, and he's playing pretty well. They lost last week, but that was on the field goal kicker. But at any rate, they're playing really good football. But let me ask you this. If Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers had Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle, and that was our starting offense with Jordan Love as the quarterback, how do you think Jordan Love would be doing today?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Right? So it's the talent around you too. I would say that he would be doing very well, I bet.
yeah.
I bet he would be.
Yeah.
Those guys can get separation. They're fast. McCaffrey's in a class by
Yeah.
himself. We don't have those players. So we have Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Aaron Jones, and it's no slight. And then our tight end is Luke Musgrave, who Matt LaFleur is, in his doghouse for some reason. It was on the Monday night broadcast, right? So, and it's not their fault. They could develop. I mean, Devontae Adams, when he was a rookie, he had the dropsies and he couldn't catch anything, and people were
Yeah.
down on him. It takes some time. And so that's what we're seeing is the growing pains. And um, we just don't have those players in place. But again, if we had them players and Jordan Love, I think Jordan Love everybody would be like, oh, he's doing really well.
Yeah.
So talent around you does matter.
Yeah. Very good point that whenever you were talking about the comparing the stats there, that was exactly my thought. Like who did Rodgers have around him? And
Yeah.
um yeah, um definitely um some good points there. And I think Jordan Love would be doing quite well. Um if we had some of those 49er stars there. Those
Hmm.
guys all have experience as well. Um, so I think a lot of it is just the inexperience on the roster. I think
Hmm.
talent wise, the Packers do have some good players. They still don't quite um, match up to like Debo Samuel. He's a really unique talent for sure.
Hmm.
But like Luke Musgrave, I think he could be a really great tight end.
Yep.
Christian Watson,
Hmm.
I think we've seen how good he can be. Romeo Dobbs,
Hmm.
I mean, even now he's looked like the best receiver for Green Bay so far.
Hmm.
Just with Christian Watson being out. Um, yeah, I think we've seen flashes. I just think it's the inexperience. Just the fact that there's not really any veteran presence outside of, Aaron Jones and David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, um, on the Packers offense. And especially like in the receiver
Hmm.
room, they're all young guys. Um, Jaden Reed is another very talented player there. I think they definitely have the talent. I think they just don't have the experience. They haven't played together very much. This is their first 5 games playing together ever. So that's outside of the preseason at least, and so that's a big deal, and it's I think it is going to take some time. I think what could help is the offensive line could be a little better. Give Jordan Love more time to throw, more time to get through his reads. Um, uh, some of the time he's just look look one direction, then he's swarmed and
Hmm.
having to um, try to scramble. Um, to be honest, I think Jordan Love. I don't think he's probably as good of a passer as Purdy, but if
Hmm.
if we did have those um, 49ers players, he could be almost better than Purdy just because of his athleticism. We've seen him run some.
Hmm.
He's
Hmm.
looked really good. Um, and like I said, I don't think he's quite the passer that Purdy is. Purdy's looked really good as a passer, and that's what just being able to deliver accurate balls to their playmakers is what's made him so good. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah, go over some things that the Packers could improve on. I think we've looked at um, or we've seen maybe we touched briefly on the offensive line and the running game. Just maybe dive a little deeper into that and maybe what we can do to improve those.
Yeah, again, I think Aaron Jones is the key to that. He's got
Yeah,
such a good cutback ability. He knows where to go. He's shifty, he's fast, and that's something Dylan's not. So, I think we're blocking the same. It's just that he's just not hitting the right spots, or he's hesitant, or he plods. He's just a plodder, right?
yeah,
He's like a fullback, and um, he's not your starting running back. And I think he's showing that. I think that's and
yeah,
really. Wilson looks about the same. He's kind of a bigger plotter type guy, not very shifty and fast. When
yeah,
I look at younger running backs that come into the league, and Pacheco, he's not that big, but he's so fast and shifty and just
yeah,
runs with purpose, and um, we just don't have that speed, but with Jones we do, and so we
yeah,
desperately need him. So I think just with him back in the backfield, the run game improves immediately. So
yep,
I don't know it's the line. I think it's just more the runner, is what I would say there. I think the other
yeah,
thing that we can improve on too is with you mentioned that Jordan Love is kind of he's a faster guy. He's got some athleticism. Let's
yeah,
use that to his advantage. You know, you remember Rodgers, Favre, they'd always roll out of the pocket, buy some more time. You
yeah,
know, gives you more time to find that open receiver, kind of improv a little bit. I don't see Jordan Love doing a whole lot of that. I'd have designed rollouts, to
yeah,
where they could do that a little bit more. That might open up, could buy him some more time so he gets away from some of that pressure that he's been facing.
yeah,
And you never know where that could happen. Now, you don't want him to run all the time and just get hit, but if he's smart, Russell Wilson ran all the time and he never took a big hit. He was smart with the ball. He'd throw it away or he'd tuck it and run. You can do that and not avoid those big hits. But
yeah,
I think Green Bay could do that a little bit more. but outside of that, yeah, I mean, the other thing is, could they go out and get some free agent or not free agent, but could they go out and get some trade by trade deadline and get somebody into Green Bay? I don't know if that's going to make a big of a difference. And do you want to do that? And is the guy you're going to bring in going to make you that much better of a team?
Yeah.
So there's that aspect too. But I think you just got to go with what you have and see if you can improve. I mean, if they signed, I know Marcole Hardman from the Jets, he's not been involved in their offense very much. He could be a guy that's on the trade block. Um, Jerry Judy, we talked about. We talked about who's the other guy? Cortland Sutton is another
Yeah.
guy, and then Hunter Renfro is another guy that
Yeah.
comes to mind.
That's true.
But I wouldn't be opposed to but Green Bay's going to want to get him on the cheap though, right? They're not going to want to give up a lot to get somebody like that. So,
Yeah.
so I think it'd probably be more of a lower end guy. It wouldn't be probably a Judy. It'd probably be somebody like a Renfro or a Hardman. But and then would that really make a big difference for the team?
Yeah.
Maybe not this year, but maybe for years to come because you have some veterans in there, and I think that's what they need too. And I think they're missing that stability. Because think about this, if Watson or Dobbs gets hurt, which is highly likely, who's going to come in next? It's going to be another like Samari Torre, or it's going to be, uh, um, some of their other uh, Wicks. It could be, so it
Yeah.
could be some of their other players that don't have a lot of experience either.
Yep. Yeah. Um, I don't consider it likely that they would
Right,
bring in a receiver.
right.
Um, I will. We'll talk a little bit about this later, maybe. But it would be interesting. Um, they did go pretty hard, it sounds like, after Jonathan Taylor, and
They did. Yep.
I found that quite interesting. Um, but before we get there, do you think there would be a possibility of them maybe trying to get another running back, another guy to back up Jones? He tends to miss a few games a year, with one injury or another, and the Packers, quite frankly, just don't like to use him a lot, for that reason. They don't want to put a lot of wear and tear on him. That's why they have been using Dylan so much, um, or just not running the ball at all. And so I don't know if you have any names off the top of your head that could be on the trade block, or if there's any free agents out there um, that you can think of, but any running backs that they could target, at the trade deadline.
Yeah, that's a tough one because running backs they're scarce. And then you look at Aaron Jones, like he's 28. So
Yep.
next year he's going to be 29, so that's getting to that age where it's like that's where, you kind of fall off the cliff usually right around that time frame is where those things can happen. And so I think that's
Yeah.
why they were probably looking at Jonathan Taylor. He's younger, he's 24, I believe. And so he could have been a nice piece and to bring in. And that would have been fantastic. Now, I don't know what they would have had. I think they would have had to given up quite a bit to do it, and that's probably why it didn't work. But
Yeah.
I think Watson was in that deal too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
But I
okay.
think other players that you could bring in, it's really tough. Just kind of looking at well, who would be some free agents, next year? Well, um, you know, from what I'm looking at here, you're getting into guys that are in that same age range as Jones. So you got like a Derrick Henry. Well, you're probably not going to bring him in. He's going to be 30,
Yeah.
so you have that. Josh Jacobs is kind of an interesting one. But he's got a pretty high salary, so I don't know that you could get
Yeah.
him and or nor would I, necessarily want him. I think you're going to probably get into guys that are currently buried on the depth chart on their teams, and then like Edward Hilaire, he's
Yeah.
24, but could he be a guy that you bring in? You know,
Yeah.
I could see more a move something like that, but like a big name free agent that you want to bring in, I'm just not seeing him out there. So
Yeah.
that's why I think you see so many NFL teams drafting running backs. The Bears took Rashawn Johnson, Miami took a Cheney. Um, the Bengals drafted I can't think of the guy's name.
Chase
Chris
Brown.
Chase Brown. That's right. Thank you, Chase Brown. So there was a lot of running backs that were drafted on teams,
Yep.
and they're making an impact. So I think if I'm Green Bay, I think that's probably where they get their guy. And you can pick up a guy in the
Yeah.
second or third round that can be really good
Yeah.
for your team. And I think that's where it's at versus what I see out there for free agency.
Yeah. I think one thing that could change, at least in the way they draft running backs, I think they tend to go pretty much in all positions. They like to go for the bigger guys.
Hmm.
Um, maybe go for someone like a Devon Achan or
Hmm.
different um different skill set, you know. Um, a slightly smaller guy. And yeah, I don't. Um, I figured it'd be an interesting, make for an interesting discussion, but I certainly don't expect them to get trade for anyone. I mean, running backs aren't
No,
really that kind of um, position that you want to really invest in. Um,
right.
I think we've seen that with all the running backs trying to get extensions and stuff. So I don't consider
Hmm.
that likely. It'll probably come. All right, so moving on um, from the running back discussion, I guess we'll go just take a little bit of a look over their schedule, the remaining schedule here for the Packers. They've played 5 games, had their bye week, and so now they're heading into a week 7 matchup um, with the Broncos here on Sunday at 4:25 Eastern, 3:25 Central. And yeah, what are your thoughts? We'll start with that game. We said that it could be, um, a good game to bounce back. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. Um, we've definitely seen some struggles, so do you think they will bounce back in this game?
I do think they'll bounce back in this game because Denver gives up 174 yards rushing a game. And if Aaron Jones is back, I think that looks positive for Green Bay.
Yep.
Take some pressure off of Love. He won't have to throw for 300 yards and try to stage a comeback. And Denver's struggling too. So I think if, if we can get our running game established and, get some key turnovers off Russell Wilson, get some pressure on him, I think Green Bay should win that game. Um, that's the way it should happen, but you never know. But so I'd say Green Bay would win that game coming back. But it gets interesting after that because if you look further down in the schedule, it gets a little tougher. But so that's
Yeah.
that's a game that you gotta get. So that if they win that game, that'll put them at 3-3.
Yeah.
So earlier in the year, I thought 9-8 would be probably a if they finished 9-8 or 8-9, that probably would be about what I would expect. They won eight. I think they won 8 last year, right? And they just missed
Yeah.
the playoffs on the last day of the season. But um, so I figured a similar record wouldn't be unreasonable to expect. But now it's interesting because we've seen them play the first 5 games and we have them winning against Denver, let's say. So that puts them at 3-3. It'd be cool to kind of see like, well, where are they going to finish the season based on what we've seen today, and would that change?
Yeah.
And so who do they have after Denver? It looks like they have the Minnesota Vikings, who are not playing very good football either, and they are without Justin Jefferson for a while too. So
Yeah.
um, and they don't have much of a run game, so it's not by any means a gimme win. Nothing is, but
Yeah.
um, I would expect them to win that game at Green Bay. But if they lost, it wouldn't surprise me either. But let's just say they win that game, so that puts them at
Yep.
4-3. Would you agree with that? We'll go with a win
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
and then they get the Rams. I'll be at that game, by the way. So that'll be the
Okay.
Rams against the Packers. Because I'm going to be there, I would hope that they would win.
Yeah.
But that could be a tough game for them, though. That could go either way. It wouldn't surprise me if they lost that game.
Yeah.
Um, between that one or the Minnesota one, let's say they go 1-1, so that puts them at 4-4. So let's say they lose to the Rams,
Yeah.
and then they go to Pittsburgh. Um, Honestly, I with Pittsburgh's defense and the way they can put pressure with TJ Watt on that, I would expect a really low scoring game in there, and I think the Steelers at home probably win that one.
Yeah. That's
Today is what I would say, right?
yeah. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the Steelers defense is
Hmm.
really hard to beat, and as bad as their offense has been, it's it's tough to see the Packers really being able to move the ball against them. I think the Steelers
Hmm.
can get enough done. I wouldn't be surprised if, they get a big Jalen Warren run or something. Um,
Right.
the Steelers do off the
Yeah.
Packers, so
Which they need to play him more.
yeah, they
As
do.
he definitely is he brings a spark to the team. And Najee Harris, I thought, yeah, that's just amazing how he's been so ineffective. But George
Yeah,
Pickens and has been really good for them.
yeah,
With Pickett thrown to him, Kenny Pickett, and so I think they have a good combo. But yeah, I think it'd be a close, low scoring game, like seventeen
yeah,
16. I could see that. So
yeah.
so that puts them at 4-5 if they lose that one. And then
Okay.
lovely, who do we get next? Chargers. Oh,
Chargers, yep,
yeah. Good offense. It could be a long day. It's in Green
yeah,
Bay, so that will help.
yeah,
But again, I don't know, with Justin Herbert coming in and just some of the weapons they have on offense,
yeah,
I just think that could be a long day for us too. So I would say they likely would lose that game, and then um, just a few short days after that, we get to recover, and then we get to travel up to Detroit on Thanksgiving and play the Lions, which historically have played really well on Thanksgiving, and now, with their team the way it is, I think that game could really get out of hand. I could see like a 34 to 10 game. I hate to say it, but
yeah,
right. I think they could really just to kind of have a field day against Green Bay.
yeah,
Um, so that's 4-7. I can't believe I'm saying all this. I love my Packers, by the way, but I'm trying to be realistic too.
yeah. No, I agree with
Oh,
you.
yeah. And then it doesn't get any easier. Guess who they got after the Lions?
Yeah,
The Chiefs. And that must be a Sunday night game because it says it's 7:20.
yeah,
So December 3rd. Let me see. Yep, that's a Sunday nighter. So yeah, that's going to be a tough game for him too. Um, but you never know. You never know. Chiefs almost went down last week,
yeah,
um, but anyway, so let's say they don't win that one. That puts them at 4-8. And then they get to the Giants.
yeah. It's an interesting one.
That's an interesting one. Now, I mean, I'm assuming Daniel Jones will be back by then, but I think,
Yeah.
but the Giants have their share of problems too. They had the ball on a 1 yard line 2 times
Oh
and
man.
ended up losing the game. I don't know if you saw the game, but on the last play of the game, um, I was watching the game with my daughter and I said, okay, she goes, what's going to happen? I said, he's going to throw it in the end zone. There's going to be pass interference. They're going to get the ball at the 1 yard line with no time. And they get one more play. She says, okay, let's see what happens. That's exactly what happened. He's like, how'd you know? I'm like, I don't know. You just watch football long enough, you just get those things. So, but then the last play when he threw it to Waller in the back of the end zone, there was pass interference on that play too, but they
Yeah,
didn't
there
get the
was.
flag. Oh my goodness.
I mean, it was almost worse than the play before. There was a clear grab. I did see the final moments of that one. I was
Mm-hmm.
just looking for any games I could watch.
Mm-hmm.
Not watching the Packers, obviously, and so I
Yeah.
turned that one on for a little bit and was able to see the final moments. I hope so. I was wishing for the Giants to win that one so
Oh,
bad.
knock the Bills off. Yeah, they could,
Yeah,
and they really should have. And then I don't know what Taylor did at just before halftime, but they had the ball on the 1 yard line. There was like 14 seconds left, and he must have audibled at the line because he called a run play to Barkley. Barkley gets stuffed, and they can't get back up to the line to stop the clock. The clock expires. They go to the halftime without any points on that drive.
yeah.
They could have kicked the field goal, or they could have threw the pass and had two plays. Like if it's not there, throw it away, and then line up for one more attempt. But um, so yeah, the Giants are they're kind of a mess. They just
Yeah,
they haven't been playing very good football. So let's
but
say the Packers get that win, huh? We got to give them a win
yeah, we
here
may
because
as well. Yeah, I mean,
all right,
if we just to say something against the Packers here real quick,
yeah,
the the Giants' main strength is Saquon Barkley,
it
and that
is,
is
it is.
also the Packers' main weakness there on defense. So
Okay,
I don't
well,
think this is going to be a pushover by any means, but
no,
I think they can tough out a win here, and I mean they got to get a win somewhere. I
right,
can't see them losing, you know, f four straight games here, whatever we have them at, and losing another one yet to the Giants. I think they can win
hmm
this one.
yeah. So that puts them at 5-8. So then maybe we can go on a little win streak here. Let's see. So then we get Tampa Bay in Green Bay. Um, and I do think Green Bay can win. I think they can win that game. It's going to be cold, and you get that Florida team up there, and they don't have much of a run game. Rashad White is not done a whole lot with Tampa.
Yeah.
Baker left the game with an injury, but Baker he can have good games, but in a cold weather game,
I
we'll
mean,
see how he does.
yeah, we saw Packers played well against
Hmm.
him with the
Yeah,
Browns. He had four interceptions. I believe that might have
yeah.
been in December too, when it
Hmm.
was a little bit cold. So I could definitely see the defense having a good day.
So that gets him at 6-8. And then to finish out the year, three more games. Your Green Bay travels to Carolina, which they haven't won a game yet, and I just think, yeah, Frank Reich down there is kind of in trouble, maybe. But I think Green Bay, they have to get that win, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's just
I would certainly hope
so
so.
yeah. So that puts them at 7-8, and then you got the Vikings in Minnesota. That's looks like it's another 7:20 kickoff time. So that's either a Sunday or a Monday nighter. Let's see. That looks like it's a Sunday nighter. It's tough to play in Minnesota on a Sunday night in the dome, and they'll probably have just Justin Jefferson back by then. Of course, I've read
Yeah,
reports where Minnesota's tanking so they can get Caleb Williams. We'll see if that's true, but
yeah,
um, they may or may not bring Jefferson back. But regardless, I think that's probably a Minnesota win. Um,
yeah,
so that puts them at 7-9, and then the last game is in Green Bay against the Bears. Um, and we own Chicago, so right, we even beat them once this year. So that's an 8-9. So it's about what I said last year. I said 8-9, or at the beginning of the year. So that's what I come up with my calcs. If we're wrong on, the Giant game and they lose that one, we gave them a win there. Then they're going to be 7-10. So I think that's within the realm of a possibility too. So I'd say that 7 or 8 games are going to win. Which, if at the end of the season, if they say, we don't think Jordan's the guy, which I don't think they're going to do that, but if, you know, they're going to be in a position where they're not going to be able to really do a whole lot to get their future quarterback unless you take a flyer on somebody in the second or third round. But
yeah,
which, quarterbacks, if you looked at, during drafts, quarterbacks can be taken at different times, and some of the ones taken later turn out better.
yeah,
So you just never know if a guy falls like that you can pick up your next guy. But I think by the end of the year, we're going to know if Jordan Love is the guy or if he's just a guy.
yeah,
And Colin Cowherd thinks he's a guy in that Dak Prescott, Derek Derek Carr arena in the kind of that realm.
Yeah.
And maybe he's right. Maybe he is. And you can still win in the NFL with, guys like that.
Yeah.
But you got to have other players that surround them and that make
I
him better
mean,
too.
if he's saying Jordan Love is playing like Dak Prescott, Derek Carr now,
Hmm.
and Derek Carr and Dak both have, pretty good supporting casts right now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Especially Dak Prescott. I would say, um, Jordan Love, if he's playing in the Cowboys offense, if you put him in that scenario, I think he could do about what Dak's doing.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. I think he could. So again, it's the players around you. Rodgers had Devontae, and he flourished when he had him. And he didn't have Devontae then. And then it was more of a struggle, even for
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
So you got to have talent, no doubt about it. You got to have playmakers. You get the ball in their hands and let them make a play.
yeah,
And Tua, I mean, is he anything special? I mean, he's a good quarterback in
yeah,
Miami, but he's not upper echelon. But
yeah.
yet he just gets the ball into his fast receivers, Tyreek Hill, Waddle,
Yep,
A Chain. I mean, these guys can just flat out move and
yeah,
just put the ball in the playmaker's hand and let him make a play. And
yep,
so that's what we need. And we'll get there. You just like I said earlier, we just gotta nail our draft picks then. And
yeah,
I still think you got to bring in some free agents, but um, that's what Ron Wolf did. He brought in guys. He wasn't afraid to do that, and it just gave us a more balanced team that way. And I know you can bring in some free agents, and doesn't mean they're going to be great. You have to be smart there too, because you can really bring in some free agents that are just like, oops, shouldn't have done that. Like Chase Claypool, or the Bears did that, and I'm so glad they got them instead of Green Bay. But that was a flop, and
yeah.
he ends up in Miami now. But so yeah, so 8 and 9, 7 and 10. So if Jordan Love finished the season with that record, are you happy with that?
Um, that's a good question. Um, I think 8 and 9, I think I am
Hmm.
because you look at last year, we had
Hmm.
Rodgers on the team. We went 8 and 9. Um, and we lost a good many players in free agency. We don't have Alan Lazard.
Hmm.
Um, Not that I'm saying Lazard was great, but he was experienced, and that's what the Packers don't have now.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, they lost a few guys in free agency, some of their veterans.
Hmm.
Um, so I think it'll be a pretty nice accomplishment if Love can go 8 and 9 for sure. And I think when we went over the schedule here, we're kind of thinking of, how the Packers are playing now. Can they win
Hmm.
these games? Um, but what happens if Love gets better? If Aaron Jones is out there running wild,
Sure, sure.
if and it's possible, at some point these receivers and Love are going to develop more. I don't think this is
Hmm.
all Love is going to be.
Hmm.
I
Right.
think he's going to get better. This team is going to continue to get better together.
Hmm.
I think even now Jordan Love is capable of playing better. It's just, what he has around him, The offensive line has been especially at least in pass protection a little bit iffy at times, especially
Hmm.
without David Bakhtiari. Now he's gone for the season, it looks like, and yeah, it could be tough, but I think you get Aaron Jones back, establish a run game. If you can keep him healthy, that's a big plus, and you actually give him the ball. And I think we can see some development here from the receivers and Love. And I mean, we've seen some miscues from other players here from the receivers. It's definitely not all
Hmm.
been on Love.
Right. Yeah. I mean, every NFL player drops a pass here and there, and we saw it in that, but that would hurt in that drive is there was two drops on the same down and distance that we were trying to get.
Yeah.
Dobbs and Musgrave. Musgrave's a little behind him, but he still should have caught it. And then, of course, then the third down throw was a little bit underthrown to Watson. And but I don't blame him on that. I mean, it was the end of the game, and he had to try to make something happen. So
Yep.
yeah, but you're right. I mean, if he continues to develop and things get clicking in the running game, and then that opens up stuff for the passing game, and the Packers win the games they're supposed to that we just said, and they eke out even a couple more games that we didn't think, like the Ram game. Let's say they get that one. That wouldn't be far out of the realm to say they could win that one.
Yeah.
They could be, 9-8 or even 10-7 if they pick up a couple games that we didn't think they were going to win. So
Yeah.
they probably make the playoffs with that, as a wild card.
Hmm.
And I think that would be fantastic if he could get that experience and that confidence. But um, yeah, 5 games into it, but like I said, once we get into the end of November, I think we'll have a better picture of where they're headed as a team. Obviously, there'll be more games, but as long as we can see him improving and there's this ascension upward, that's what you want to
Yeah.
see. We don't want to see a continued regression. And if that happens, now we got to have another show and another discussion. If there's just this continued
Yeah.
regression and it just doesn't what if he just stays down here at this low percentage
Yeah.
rate, right?
Kind of the
And
Zach
that's
Wilson
the
effect,
norm.
maybe.
Yeah, and then what if and Tom Clements is his quarterbacks coach,
Yeah.
so he is a good quarterbacks coach. So and they speak highly of him, which they're going to do publicly. They're not going to criticize him. So I take that,
Yep.
for what it's worth. Um, but they moved on from Rodgers. They were ready, and I think they said, okay, we're going to go to Jordan. They must have had some faith in him. But LaFleur said in the beginning, he said, "Now this is going to take some time. We still
Yep.
he's not going to be he's not going to be at that level. It's going to take some time." And so I think that's what we're seeing now. So, um, but in the NFL, you get about a year, right? And then people start
Yep.
getting restless. So
Yep.
it's a short window.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think he's going to be fine. Relax, as Aaron said once, and I think he's going to be just fine, and he'll get better as the season goes, and I do think will he ever get up to Rodgers and Favre era? Maybe not,
Yeah.
but that's a pretty high arena to reach. But if he can get respectable, in that Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, Derek Carr, um, you can win a lot of football games, and I'm okay with that too.
Yeah. I mean, just the 49ers are using quarterbacks that
Hmm.
aren't so great and they're making it happen. So,
Yep. Yeah, it can happen. You just got to be really strong on like defense or other things like that, which again, the Joe Barry discussion makes me nervous,
yeah.
um, but that's probably another show. But we'll see. I mean, if we finish at the bottom tier in defense this year and we're still in that 28, 29 range, I don't know how he survives. I mean,
Yeah.
I just don't know how he survives. Um, but
Yeah.
LaFleur kind of put his neck out for him, so it's on him too. So
Yep.
we'll see.
I guess so. Thanks for coming on. It was definitely a lot of fun. Discussing, some of the struggles on offense, especially, and just in general, and being able to kind of look over the rest of the season. Just kind of looking forward, and hopefully we will see some better games here from Jordan Love from the offense. I think a lot of things can get better, but yeah, I think Matt LaFleur can improve, Jordan Love can improve, and some of these injured players get back, and I think we can pull out some wins that some people maybe didn't think we were gonna pull out. So I guess that's it for today. But Thanks for coming on. Really enjoyed it, and I guess
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. Go Pack, go. And yeah, always believe, never give up on the pack. All right. Thanks, Landry.
Yep.